Hey guys, welcome to our first video lecture in my living room. This is very awkward talking to my phone, but we're gonna get through it. I feel like a YouTuber. So today, which should be Wednesday the 18th for you guys, yes, we are going to be talking about taxonomy, which is our system of classifying and naming all species on the earth in a organized way. So our modern system of taxonomy was invented by a Swedish dude named Carl Linnaeus, who was born way back in 1707, so like 100 years before Darwin. And what he did was he went to college, got real smart, and then he traveled all around Sweden looking at plants and animals, mostly plants because he was a botanist. He was also a zoologist though, so he also studied animals. But he looked at all these different plants and animals and he identified individual species. And back in those days, individual species were referred to with these long, complicated Latin names that were like 5 words long and really ridiculous. So what he did was he shortened that. He got rid of that. And he started the system of binomial nomenclature. Binomial, 2 names. Nomenclature basically means like system of naming things, names of stuff. Oh, look at that. Hey, Suki. Speaking of cats, Felis catus is our example of binomial nomenclature at work. This is the scientific name of the domestic house cat. Hey. So Felis is the genus, catus is the species. So binomial nomenclature is always written with 2 words, the genus and the species. So the genus is always capitalized, the species is never capitalized, they're both always in italics, and they're both always Latin words that basically mean like cat, feline. Makes sense. So this is now our system for naming all of our animals. So, need a bigger eraser, but this will work for now. We took that system and now we have different taxonomic levels. So we have 8 taxonomic levels. So we already talked about 2 of them. Species, which is way down here, and genus. Then we've got family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, and domain. So this is going from bigger to smaller. So domain is the largest classification of life, while species is the smallest. So let's take a look at Suki's taxonomy. Suki is a eukaryote, so she is in the domain Eukarya. She is a animal, so she's in the kingdom Animalia. Her phylum, oh, rude, I was talking about you. She is a vertebrate, so she's in the phylum Chordata. She has a vertebral column. She's a mammal. She creates milk and has fur. So she is in the class Mammalia. She's also a vicious carnivore, hunts for her food, so she's in the order Carnivora. She's of the cat variety, so she's in the family Felidae, which is basically all cats, big and small. And then her genus is Felis because she's a small cat, so Felis incorporates all the small cats. And she is a Felis catus, that is her species, as she is a domestic cat, who I love very much. So those are our 8 taxonomic levels. We are going to talk about the 3 domains today and the 6 kingdoms a little bit, and then later in lessons, we're going to break down the individual kingdoms. But today, we are just talking about the 3 domains. We've got bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. I can't really see that. Okay. So again, these notes are on Schoology. Use them, print them out, love them, highlight them. All right. Sorry, I got interrupted with a phone call. Anyways, so our 3 domains, we've got bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. So the main difference between these is that bacteria and archaea are prokaryotic domains, and eukarya is eukaryotic. Easy to remember because it says it in the name. So what is the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes? You probably learned this already in Bio 1, but just a quick review. Prokaryotes are typically smaller and simpler. They have no nucleus, so their DNA is just kind of hanging out in the cytoplasm. They call it naked DNA sometimes. They have no specialized organelles, so no chloroplasts, no mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell, obviously. And they are always unicellular. There's some other more complicated differences, but for our purposes, that's all you need to know. So bacteria and archaea are both prokaryotic, so that means prokaryotic, which means that they are unicellular, have no nuclei, and have no specialized organelles. Eukarya, on the other hand, are eukaryotic, so they do have a nucleus, they do have specialized cells like we have, organelles, like we have mitochondria, and plants have chloroplasts, and they also can be multicellular. So we are multicellular organisms, but there are some, not a whole lot, but there are some unicellular eukaryotes as well, which means they're just made up of one cell. So let's start with bacteria. So this is an extremely diverse domain. They are all over the place, literally. They're covering your whole body, they're inside of your whole body. They perform every kind of role on the planet. They can be autotrophic, which means they're like plants, they get energy from the sun. They can be heterotrophic, so they can eat things and absorb their energy. Some of them are decomposers, some of them are more like the heterotrophs of the animal kingdom, where they hunt for their food. And some are parasitic. We can get a parasitic bacterial infection inside of us, and they'll feed off of our bodies. But we've also got mutualistic bacteria inside of us that will fight against that parasitic bacteria and help us digest our food and boost our immune system and all this good stuff. So, some examples of bacteria, you've got cyanobacteria, which we've talked about before, if you remember in the recesses of your brain. That is photosynthetic bacteria, so that's like basically plant bacteria. You've got spirochetes and actinobacteria, which are gram-negative, which basically means they're like missing something from their cell wall. You don't have to know that. But those are a lot of our disease-causing or infection-causing bacteria, so bad guys. There is only one kingdom in the bacteria domain, the kingdom Eubacteria, which means true bacteria. So one domain, one kingdom. Bacteria, eubacteria. So when we're talking about the domain bacteria, we're also talking about the kingdom of eubacteria. So that makes it easier for me because I don't have to do a separate lesson to talk about eubacteria. Perfect. So moving on to archaea. Archaea are the oldest organisms on Earth. They evolved before anything else. So we all sort of, well, we didn't necessarily come from archaea, but we kind of branched off of a similar lineage. Because remember, we all came from our good old friend Luca, your great times a million Uncle Luca. So archaea were the first organisms. They are also prokaryotic, which means they are unicellular, have no nucleus, and have no specialized organelles like mitochondria or chloroplasts. And they are often found in extreme environments. They are extremophiles, which means they love extreme environments. We've got a few different types of those, which are all, again, on this lovely notes sheet that I made for you. We have our thermophiles. I'm going to give you a second to guess what they love. Correct. High temperatures. So our thermophiles live in ridiculously hot places. Places where other species' DNA would, like their nucleus would bust and they would lose their DNA. Like you would literally like boil alive at a molecular level if you lived in these areas. But they love it. So they live literally in volcanoes. Then you've got your halophiles. Any guesses? Right again, are salt lovers. So I know you've heard of the Dead Sea. We talked about that a little bit when we were talking about salinity levels. So our halophiles love salt, and they're the only organisms on Earth that can survive in the Dead Sea. Anything else, the water would be sucked out of your body and you would basically shrivel up and die. And then we've got our methanogens. Any guesses? High methane content, which again would probably kill most things. So our methanogens feed off of that and use it to get energy, and they also produce methane. So it's a win-win for them. A couple other things about our domain Archaea. They have different cell walls than bacteria and protists, which is a kingdom in eukarya that we'll get to on Friday. And they only have one kingdom. So Archaea, like bacteria, have one kingdom, and that kingdom is called Archaebacteria. So if we're talking about Archaea, we are talking about Archaebacteria, which is the kingdom that all Archaea are within. This means old bacteria. So Archaea itself basically just means old, because they are the oldest organisms, the first organisms. Yeah, that pretty much wraps up bacteria and Archaea. We are honestly not super concerned about those guys. In ecology, we are more worried about our fungi and animals and plants. So let's move on to them, shall we? 2, domain eukarya. Woo, that's where it's at. So, domain eukarya is what we belong to. It's what plants belong to, what mushrooms belong to, and other fungi, and what protists belong to. So, the domain eukarya has 4 kingdoms. Kingdom protista of the protists, kingdom fungi of the fungi, kingdom plantae of the plants, and kingdom animalia of the animals. So eukarya are eukaryotic, which means they can be unicellular, like some of our protist friends and yeast of the fungi kingdom, or they can be multicellular, like you and me and my cat and all other animals and plants. They also have specialized organelles, like we have our mitochondria, plants have their chloroplasts. We also have specialized cell types that make up tissues. So like you have muscle tissue and different organ tissues that then make up organs that then make up your body. So other species don't really, species in other domains, bacteria and Archaea, don't really have that. They don't have those specialized tissues like we have to have these really complex bodies. So that's pretty much it about eukarya. So if you take a look at the notes that are on Schoology, you've got the difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. So a eukaryotic cell, again, has those specialized organelles like mitochondria or chloroplasts, which are not pictured on here. Whereas prokaryotic cells do not, but what they do have is a capsule that surrounds them. They have a cell wall. They always have a flagella for movement if they are motile. And then instead of a nucleus, like we have over here, we've got our nucleus and our nucleolus, they just have kind of free-floating DNA just hanging out in the cytoplasm, and they call that a nucleoid, and it's basically just a chromosome just like chilling out in the open. Then sometimes, especially in bacteria, they've got this little ring of extra DNA called a plasmid, and they can trade that with each other and like do weird stuff to mix up their genetic information. But again, we're not really concerned about bacteria in ecology class. We're really here for the plants and animals, let's be honest. But we won't get there till next week. But that is about it for today's lesson. So remember, read over the notes, print them out if you want to, or copy them down. Use those to complete the questions that are on Schoology, and then you have a worksheet that was sent home with you on Friday, but if you weren't there, or you lost it, or you don't like a printed out worksheet, do the one that's on Schoology. It looks a little bit different, but I promise it's the same worksheet. I just had to edit it. So Submit that. That's due today. And I hope you guys are doing well. Happy Wednesday. Bye.